I can move around to have the sort of teacher part of me in action. That was such a lovely introduction. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. Thank you, Alba, Maria Elena, everyone who's just organized really a wonderful session and conference for us. So there was a lot of talk about intersectionality already, so I'm really speaking to an audience that is very well informed. So it will be a pleasure to just share a few things that we've been doing at San Francisco State and see if it will stimulate some conversation here. So as we all know, intersectionality is bringing together who we are, all the pieces that make us individually who we are, our race, our sexuality, our gender, nationality. And I think when I was reflecting on this, I was thinking of my home. I am the daughter of 2 immigrant parents, growing up bilingual. And those are the things that make me who I am and how I move through the space of my experiences. And each of you have that story. And you bring that to your work. You brought it to your experiences as a student and now as an educator. And there's complexity in that space. When I was thinking about my own educational experiences, I realized when I looked at K through 12, my undergraduate university experience, my graduate university experience, I didn't have a single Latina or Latino instructor in my entire educational experience. So as you navigate that space, it's easy to feel like you maybe don't belong, or maybe don't have what is needed to be successful. And it can place a lot of self-doubt. And for some, many, there are experiences of racism and really painful experiences that sometimes really impede one's ability to stay in that space. And I think as we're all here because we made it. And we want to make sure that our students do as well. So in thinking about our students, it's important to think about our campus culture and the racial climate on our campuses. And even when our campuses are really diverse, there are still areas of inequity and experiences that our students will have. And I think about this when I became dean, because I realized in biology was pretty diverse. And, gender equity, we were getting close. There were about 40% women, and it was reflected in the faculty. We still needed a lot of work in terms of really having diversity among the faculty in biology. But then I looked at School of Engineering. Wow, School of Engineering, we're less than 20% women, less diverse. So within the disciplines, there are challenges as well in STEM. The classroom environment, the teacher in the classroom is establishing the climate that our students are experiencing. So each individual instructor has such an important role in what our students will experience. And that is really the key, is how do we prepare the faculty for them to have a sensitivity and awareness of the diversity of the student population that they're serving. And then oftentimes when I think about when we do a really good job and our students feel empowered and they're confident, and then we send them off to a PhD program for the workforce that's less diverse, less accepting, less embracing. And so how do we build that resiliency in them that they can counteract these other forces that might also derail them from a really successful career in science? When I was thinking about the student experience, I was reflecting back on my own experience in graduate school. I have a dear friend here, Jarod, Brazil, that we both went to graduate school together. And there are many that went to UC Berkeley. That was such a difficult space to be in. And I remember my first SACNAS meeting. And I just want to thank the SACNAS leaders here because what you all have done to support an amazing organization. It's really just commendable. I mean, so I think my first Sacrament was in '92, and it was several hundred, nothing as large as it is today. And that was my first time being in a space where I was like, oh my God, there's Latino physicists and mathematicians and computer scientists and biologists, and the whole room was filled with Latinos, Latinas, Native Americans. I mean, it was such an inspirational space. I felt this strong sense of belonging. And when I became professor, like, all my students had to go. And now it's this, huge and even more inclusive space. And I just feel like it really is that place where students can really see themselves. And they're so inspired by the leadership in science. So when we were sitting up here sharing stories, I was like tickling myself. I'm here with 3 SACPA's presidents. So just thank you. So what I wanted to share was one tool that we wrote. So one thing is Dean, you have some special powers. And so in thinking about the intersectionality of our students, I realized that I really wanted the faculty to reflect on how do they present their class to their students. And one of the key structures is your syllabus. That's your contract with the students of what you're going to teach, how you're going to teach it, the framework that you're teaching. And so there's a lovely tool. It's called the Social Justice Syllabus Tool, and it was created by faculty in the College of Health and Social Sciences. And I think the presentations, you'll be able to get the reference. But it has 20 questions. And in those 20 questions, it helps the faculty reflect how inclusive am I delivering this class. So I'll just read a couple because you can't read it from back there. But does it tell the student how and why the course content is relevant to their lives and their future careers? Does it tell the students how course content or skills are used to improve the lives of individuals or communities? What are some social justice implications of the class? Is grading described in a way that is success-oriented rather than failure-oriented? So growth mindset. Are there low-stakes assignments? We're talking about how important low-stakes assignments are that allow students to practice their skills. So the idea here is that each faculty member looks at their syllabus and reflects on these 20 questions and hopefully makes adjustments. And so, as dean, I asked each of the departments to work with their faculty to go through this exercise. So, in academia, you'll always get some that'll say academic freedom, this is intrusive, but the vast majority, we say we're doing this because we care about the students and this is going to help you engage your students in a really positive and productive way. And this, you can do this in computer science, you can do this in, sometimes it's like, this is social science. No, we're all social scientists. We're all like socially engaged with our students and want to ensure that our students excel in their experiences. So anyways, this is one tool to try to ensure that our students are feeling engaged in the material. One thing I wanted to mention, and I'm going to go back on the slide, is San Francisco State, like many of our universities, are really diverse. So we're 80% students of color in the College of Science and Engineering. But within that, 40% are Latino. So they don't necessarily feel very isolated in our classrooms. So 5% are African American. They're still very isolated in our classrooms. 1% Native American, still incredibly isolated in our classrooms. So part of this social justice pedagogy tool is to really reflect on the diversity and uniqueness of our classroom compositions, so that in our attempt to really create an inclusive space, we're really thinking hard about the individual identities and that intersectionality that comes into the space of our classroom. So I want to talk a little bit about the faculty. Because as diverse as our students are, our faculty are not. Right? Faculty are not. So our faculty also experience campus climate. They can feel very isolated. Many times there will be one Latino or one African American in the department, and the department ranking did their job in diversifying their colleagues. That's like, no, no, no. And this can vary in department culture. So, for example, music and biology has more diversity in the faculty, and it's going to be incredibly hard to get diversity in computer science. So there's some disciplines that are just really difficult. And that's really hard for the students. The students want to see themselves in faculty. I want to talk about workload. Because as we all know, as the faculty of color in the department, the workload isn't balanced. You know, they want representation on committees, they want representation on searches. When you have an incredibly diverse student population, and they see the one Latina, or the one African American department, they're all gravitating, they want to talk to you. They want, you know, they feel like they can understand some of the challenges that they're going through. And so the workload is heavy. And then the reward system isn't aligned with the workload. You do all this work, and then the retention, tenure, and promotion committee doesn't necessarily, or doesn't commonly acknowledge it. And so we had an NSF IT Catalyst grant. It's part of the advanced umbrella. And we did some focus group conversation to find out where the issues were around service. And so I'll read some quotes from those, and I think they'll resonate with everyone. So service felt devalued, a quote. Of the three areas, research, teaching, and service for many feels vague, ambiguous, neglected, and not affirmed. Hidden and inequitable distribution of service. I always seem to get pulled into doing these recruitment events, open house events, and I end up having to do a lot of work for that. Cultural taxation. Everybody wants a committee that has diverse representation, and because there's fewer folks of color, therefore they get asked disproportionately, which is an ongoing problem and concern. Lack of clarity and consistency about the role of service in retention, tenure, and promotion. Because we all know that service is valued at the higher levels, and so when we review other candidates on RTP, we tell them to let go of service, and some people refuse to because we know that's the reason we're here. And so for many of us, it feeds our soul to work with our students and to ensure that they have a positive experience and that they're successful in their career goals. We enjoy it. And so when people say, well, don't do that, well, you know, I'm there. I want to see other faculty of color, but 10 minutes, other faculty, to add more diversity to the department. I'm going to volunteer to be on that search. So these things are really important. So we invited this fabulous researcher, Joya Mishra. She has an NSF advanced grant. And across the country, we've been looking at the issues around service. And so this resource is a strategy to increase transparency in service. Because really the goal is everyone should know what each other's service loads are. So let's make it more visible. And when people put together the teaching, right, most of the time you know who's teaching what. So in the same way that the department chair assigns teaching assignments, the department chair should work with their faculty to assign committee work and service and make it transparent. So everyone knows what everyone else is doing. And then finally, recognize it in the tenure and promotion process. So we asked all the departments to revise their RTP guidance so that they would clarify what were the expectations of service at an assistant professor level, associate professor level, full professor level. Don't write a paragraph, write a page, right? When they do their evaluations for their faculty, write as much about their service that you do about their research and their teaching. So that it is celebrated and rewarded as part of the holistic support of the faculty member. So in the end, there's really positive outcomes from this approach. There's greater accountability. People know what other people are doing in terms of their service work. There might be a better sense of fairness. And then again, better recognition in the RTP process, and hopefully retention. Because sometimes faculty of color will leave because they're not feeling valued for the contributions that they're giving to the department and to the organization. So, I wanted to shift and ask you to work on your table. I want you to reflect on what does intersectionality look like on your campus, and what does it look like in your department? Because that's often not exactly the same. And then importantly, what strategies can we work on to build an inclusive environment for faculty and students? And I think it's always important to reflect, what does success look like? Because knowing what success looks like is going to make you work hard on trying to do the middle part, getting those strategies to work. So now the work is back to you. I'll come around and check in about 10 minutes.